Hello, everybody. What's happening? What's happening? And I'm Dr. Thunder, and this is Getting Ish Done with Ike and Dr. Thunder. And we've been a little bit of a hiatus, but we're back and ready to go. And this one is for you skills and resources ninjas. Uh, Anyhow, this is Productivity Show. Today's show is 5 signs you should quit your job. 5 signs you should quit your job. I want to give you a little bit on this. This is interesting because there are some parallels between this topic, quitting your job, and leaving a relationship, quitting a particular association, a network of folks, getting away from some people that are dragging you down, removing yourself from the situation, all of that kind of thing. So it's very much analogous to that. And sometimes, if you are a commitment oriented, good natured brother or sister, then you may believe that you should stick around when actually you should get out of there as soon as possible. And it might be a sort of, because you're commitment oriented and because you don't want to fail, you don't want to be seen as a failure. You want to do what you say, you want to follow through. Often can be the case that you stick around longer than you should have. And when people show you who they are, and when you get a sort of idea of what a particular kind of scenario, what that scenario is going to be like, believe it the first time, it's not likely to be any different. And yeah, I know the good book talks about being forgiving, but there's a difference between forgiveness and restoration. And you don't have to stick around when people are not treating you with respect. And or if the job just ends up not being what you signed up for. Maybe it's a toxic environment. Maybe you feel worse about yourself every time you go into work. Well, we're going to be talking about this, and we're taking a look at a video called Signs You Should Quit Your Job Immediately. Signs You Should Quit Your Job Immediately by the content creator A Life After Layoff. And we're coming at you with a productivity level up, skills and resources, getting ish done today. So let's go. Warning: some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. What's happening, man?
Hey there. Hey there, everyone in YouTube land. How's it going, Dr. Thunder?
It's all right. It's going all right. It's been a minute since we did one of these. I think we took a couple weeks off there, and
Yeah, you've been out in the wild somewhere.
yeah, all kinds of stuff is going on, but it's good. It's good. We're getting this done. So we
Indeed.
don't just talk about it; we be about it.
When I when I hear this topics like this, well, first of all, I think you did a good job of like steel man in the case of why someone might stay at a job that no longer serves their needs or is no longer quote unquote healthy for them, right? And being about commitment and whatnot. Generally speaking, when I with things like this, like okay, knowing when to quit, all I can just think of is like extroverts and feelers. Yeah, I'm being a little sassy today, I guess, but
Uh oh.
to the kinds of questions and the kinds of advice these extroverts and feelers like ask, like, how do I know in this and that, and no, I'm not sure about this, not clear about that, but what if this? It's like whatever, dude, figure it out. Go think about it in your room somewhere. When you figure it out, when you make a decision, come out. But anyways, looking forward to it.
Yes, 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 definitely. And uh, without further ado, let's head on over. Let's see. All right. And, I said this before, this guy's channel, it's a life after layoff. And it strikes me as being a pretty organic, probably development of this channel. It seems as if he may have been laid off and then got his YouTube career going.
Do you know what year was this channel started or how long it's been?
I,
He
I
could have
don't
obviously
know
started a
that.
couple.
Yeah, I don't
Uh,
know. Well, hold up. Maybe I can figure that out.
yeah, maybe if you can look how long his oldest video or whatever. Now he could have obviously had a previous channel or whatever, but let's see this, and then I'm trying to see, given his age, it's like okay, maybe like 2008 ish, or is he like an early YouTube guy that because the last great financial situation was in around 2008, right? And
Hmm.
there was a whole generation of people that definitely got defined by that period. So I'm wondering if he was an early YouTuber right after that era or something. Which
Okay. So now keep in mind, this guy has 203. I think I overestimated his sub count before. He's got 203K subs, 306 videos, 22,531,307 views, joined May 19th. You want to guess the year?
oh my okay, come on. 2009.
2020.
Wow, that's not bad at
2020.
all. That 2020.
So,
That is another, yeah, right there. The plan, yeah,
yeah, so
pandemic.
I think I might have nailed it. I might have nailed it there. Um, so it's likely that he got laid off because of the pandemic and started his channel.
You know
That's
what?
what
To,
it
to
seems.
that, yeah, it's I thought this is interesting in the sense that what economically when it comes so most people 70%, 80% of people, so for the most part it can be generalized, that most people are kind of products of their environment and formative years and stuff like that, right? There is a small percentage of people whom it is less and less so, depending on their personality, right? But for the most part, people are processing the environment. And then economically, what happens during the particular era will kind of define you. You have the Great Depression era, for example, right? It'll define your habits, the way in which you see the economy, and the way in which you kind of carry yourself. No matter what, even if the economy changes, right? For the last 50 years of your life, it's like, no, I'm still a depression era person, and this is still how I do things. This is quite true. So I just want it's kind of interesting given the name of the channel, Life After Layoff, and then we're talking about the era in which he came in, and then this also just brought to mind this fact that the economic narrative or general experience that you have in some kind of formative years of your life, typically, early employment or like mid career or whatever, kind of defines people for the rest of their lives. But yeah, just a side point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's interesting. Let's hear what this guy has to say. All right. Now, we'll just hope it's not a bunch of hogwash, because we did a lot of setup work there.
Listen, I'm not an advocate of quitting your job before you have another one lined up. And if you watch this channel, you know that I talk a lot about developing game plans to maximize your chances of career success. But there's some circumstances where you just can't stay in your job and you need to leave. So I'm going to share with you the 5 deal breaker situations where you need to get out and need to get out fast. Hey everybody, it's Brian from Life After Layoff, and today we're going to talk about some situations where you really need to think about cutting bait and moving on to a different employer. As a corporate recruiter and an HR professional for the past 20 years, I've seen my fair share of pretty bad situations at work. Whether it was some candidates that I spoke with in interviews and heard some pretty horrific stories, or even people that I know personally who went through some of these things, there are certain situations where you just need to get out of your current employer. If you find yourself asking that question, whether you should stay in your current work environment, you're not alone. Many people are facing similar types of situations, and they have to make the hard decision. And really what it comes down to is how much tolerance do you have for working in a bad environment, and how is that going to affect your career? Now, if you need more help with your career search, or you need a nudge out of the nest, that's what I specialize in. I have a website called alifeafterlayoff.com. It's full of tips and tricks on how to get noticed by recruiters, how to set yourself up for success in the interviewing process, and ultimately how to land that dream job. Nothing is more emotionally or even physically draining than tolerating a job that you absolutely hate. Not only are you affected, but the people around you are affected. So your loved ones, your spouse, the people in your family, your circle of friends, everybody's affected by it as well. And I'm a believer that a steady job is a bad excuse for tolerating a toxic work environment. Now, it doesn't mean that you should be bailing on every difficult situation that you...
You got something for us?
I'm laughing. A couple of things strike me already, and now he hasn't begun his list. But that's one of the things that strikes me. He's said that he's doing a lot of setup here, saying, "Hey, what are these situations? Like, what are these situations? Oh, many people go through these situations. Everyone is affected. How are you?" So one of the things here is that I notice is that he's doing a lot of validating or validation. It's just a meta comment, right? He hasn't begun his list yet. But all this stuff he's doing right now, where he's saying other people experience it too. It's almost like he's validating the experience of the viewer, right? So I'm just trying to view through the eyes of these extrovert feelers, right? Whom I'm coming for today. Uh, these are the kinds of people whom they may be going through something, but until it's kind of validated from an external kind of mirror or source or whatever, tends not to be very real. But I find it that he's connecting with people right now. That's why he has 200K subs, right?
Right.
And so because he's actually good at doing this kind of connection. Now, this is not something that would ever occur to me to do. Is why it struck me too. Him kind of just repeating over and over that yes, it's real. People are affected. Many people too are also. To me, I'm just like, why would this be relevant? But I know why it is relevant. But I don't know. What do you think about that? All the stuff he's been doing, all the validating of the saying other people experience it too, and other people are affected.
Yeah, yeah. it's that the confirmation piece. You know, there's like there's a certain brand of Christianity that will talk a lot about, getting confirmation of something. It's like, I was praying and X, Y, and Z, and yeah, you just said this to me, that I want you to know that was confirmation, you know. Um, and you don't need confirmation. Like, if you know something is not right, if you know, look, I mean, you know immediately if if you need to walk or not. It's just people, they may not be willing to do it. Maybe they feel guilty. Maybe they're not willing to do it because of the risk involved, and they need the money. They don't know what they're going to do if they can't keep that gig, all of that kind of stuff. But you don't need confirmation. But I also understand why this is effective. I understand that, and there is a reason why people, you know, run around looking for confirmation. So, yeah, I mean, it's probably one of the ways. I mean, uh, I think somebody's writing "get the likes up" in the chat, right? So I think you wrote that a couple times, right? And that's a we're seeking. We, okay, so there's a slippery slope here. There's a fine line between actually uh, feeling good about yourself because somebody likes our video, and recognizing that the algorithm runs on likes and shares. And so
Let me
you're
ask you
playing
something.
this system. Go ahead.
Have you ever been accused by somebody, let's say, perhaps in a friendship, or maybe intimate relationship, most likely, because that's probably the kind of situation where that will come up, where they've accused you somehow of almost brainwashing them, but not in that way, in the sense of like, I never quite knew who I was around you, or until blah blah blah. There's a certain type of it's related to this idea of confirmation, where you did not, somehow they did not, because you're a weird introvert with ideas of, of what the hell is right or wrong that you come up with in there by yourself, um, and you did not validate or provide a lot of this kind of extroverted feeling validation, especially of feelings and such, that somehow the person thinks you had you somehow did play some kind of psychological game on them. Now that's rather specific thing I'm asking you there, Dr. Thurman. But have you ever been accused of that?
Because I wasn't validating, I wasn't
Yeah,
uh
and perhaps because perhaps it's something that happened to you when you were younger and you didn't understand that you needed to validate. You thought you were stating your views, but
uh,
somehow this person the whole time was taking it as not validating their feelings, and not, and somehow you kind of indoctrinating them almost in a certain way, almost.
yeah, I mean, how can I do that? So I've learned, I'll answer it this way. I have learned how to state it, but I have learned how to state my support. Like, I'll literally say, "Sure, we can do that. I support that. That sounds good." And I find myself being a lot more encouraging, like the kinds of stuff that I say, than necessarily. I'm not naturally wired that way because I don't really want people to do that to me. You know, like I don't, like stop patting my back. What do you think I need that? It's like I take it as I take it almost like an insult. you
I'm also particular for me. One of the aspect as to the aversion towards that thing that I can bring to the table here. Another aspect of having aversion towards being pat in the back is for me it's uncomfortable because it's not something I don't have control of it because it's inherently an emotional type of situation, right? All
right,
that buttering up is generally an emotional situation. I'm generally very uncomfortable with other people's emotional situations because it's
yeah,
just like this is not very useful to me. It can kind of go all kinds of places that I don't necessarily. I don't see any value really of coming out of this. So,
right.
anyways,
Yeah, I just when people start doing that, like okay, so he has gotten to about the amount of time that he can talk this way before I start giving him a side eye. Like, all right, man. you know. So, yeah, that's kind of how I'm wired. But on the other side of that, I realize that I'm I'm still learning, but I've learned that other people actually they actually feed and need that encouragement. So I'll lean into that, but then I'm sure that can be confusing because often is the case that people will see the way that you are with them and then they'll think that that's what you want to do, that they'll think that that's what you would want from them. It's like reciprocal. It's like, oh, hey, I'm giving you some compliments and like this. Okay, you give me some compliments.
yeah, and
It's
and
kind of
you're
like that.
yeah, you're the weirdo, Doctor Thunder, right? Obviously, because well, it's obvious in a certain way, but I think I was listening to somebody today who put the difference rather starkly. In other words, you're the weirdo because most people are the extroverted feeler types, like 80% easily, right? Just in
Right.
terms of just normie psychological categories, right? It's like 80%, and it makes sense. Somebody told a story like, okay, look, if the world was, filled with quote unquote introverts, right? Imagine walking to a party and rather than having all this noise and all this crazy, imagine walking into in the planet where 80% are introverts. Okay. You walk into a party, what are you gonna see? Okay. You're gonna see not so many people, but they're kind of grouped into smaller groups. Okay. They're gonna be having conversations with each other quietly, relatively. Okay, people are going to be listening intently to what other people are saying and so on and so forth. And then imagine the extroverts walking, right? They're going to start yapping about, oh, isn't the punch great? And oh, what are you guys going to watch on TV? Oh, why is everybody so moody? Let's turn the music up, blah, blah, blah. So that's how, lopsided, so the world is the other way. Obviously, the world is not the way I just described, right? You are the weirdo. In your world, that's how parties should be. You sit down and people, they would be the weirdos coming in with all the noise and all the talk about TV and whatever the hell. But anyways,
Yeah, yeah, and that's in that illustration too. Part of what uh, I was imagining when you said if everybody was introverts or most people were introverts, you go to a party and people are kind of in their own groups. There might be like some signs that have the particular topic that's being discussed
yeah,
in each
perfect.
group, so you could just walk over
You
to the
know?
group and just start, so you don't have
Yeah,
to
and
do any small
there's a
talk.
central bar. There's a place where you can go get your drink separate from everybody. You get your drink. There's a corner. There's booths too. If you just want to sit there alone, right in the booth and what? Yeah, you know.
That's great. All right, let's keep going.
You encounter at work. And in fact, companies like to see candidates that persevere in the face of adversity. Now, there's a lot of people out there that justify staying in unhealthy positions for them based on some level of obligation that they feel toward maybe a boss that gave them their first chance or a company that gave them their first shot out of school. And we're also ingrained with this sense of job hopping is bad. We don't want to have that on our resume. However, recruiters and hiring managers understand the difference between job hopping and leaving a bad situation. So you shouldn't feel the obligation to stay with something that is not resonating with your core values or something that's physically or mentally doing you harm. But there are some circumstances that absolutely require you to take action to get a new position, no matter how much you need the job. If you found yourself in an employment situation that you couldn't tolerate, leave a comment below. I'd be curious to hear what it is. So let's talk about the 5 signs that you should quit your job and move on to greener pastures.
Hold on a second.
The first reason is if you are suffering emotionally or physically.
Okay, go ahead.
So he just mentioned what you had talked about. Like, he talked about the loyalty trap, right?
Yep.
For some reason, I thought he was getting in his gear already, but he was kind of landing the plane with his preamble and by talking about the loyalty trap of like with the bosses and stuff like that. And then he also added some particulars about the job hopping, right? Which I don't think is much of a thing like these days, right? So how many years is too long, or how many years is okay? I mean, by that I mean too short, rather. How many years is too short, or what time is too short for you to be in one job, right? So you're quote unquote like a professional. So it's not like it's at Walmart and then you move to Target or something like. That doesn't really matter. But you're semi kind of professional or whatever, or some kind of a thing you're doing, some kind of a trade. So what is it? 18 months too short? Should be like 2 years, at least 1 year for it not to be considered job hopping. What do you think?
I'm sorry. Can you say that last thing again?
Yeah.
I couldn't
Well,
make out the last
the
part.
job hopping, how long do you think it should be before, or how short of a period should you be at a job for it to be considered job hopping if you move to the next job, right? So your
Oh
resume is
yeah,
just like only 8 months.
yeah, that's interesting. I You kind of wonder about this. I think it depends on the industry that you're in, because depending on how valuable you are and how much money is involved with it, I don't know that they care. How often, as long as you can deliver as long as you're really good at what you do. However, if you're, I don't know, like a management type, maybe middle management, they probably want to get the sense that you're going to stick and stay. And so, so I don't know. They'll probably look at you like, okay, 3 or 4 years and changing a position, that seems like that's you're in there for a long enough time. But 6 months, 8 months, a year here, a year there, if it's like that, if the resume starts looking like that, then they're probably going to start being like, I wonder if this is a signal of lack of commitment, or if this person's going to run as soon as they discover that this is not a dream come true, and it's not, what is it, all sunshines and rainbows or whatever. So yeah.
Okay, good. I thought it was an interesting thing, because he was talking about, yes, go ahead and change jobs. Don't be tied by this sense of loyalty, and don't be worried about being seen as a job hopper. But I think what you said makes sense. If you're in the mercenary category, then it doesn't matter. But if you're more in the management, the kind of the apparatus of the institution type category, then they want to see that you're going to be there for a while. Okay, makes sense.
Right. And then of course, it's going to depend on these whatever these criteria that he lays out, whatever his 5 reasons to get out.
Yeah, he'll get there eventually.
Yeah, right.
Working in a role where you're affected mentally and physically is a surefire sign that you need to get out, and need to get out quick. Whether you're in a role where you're overworked, overwhelmed, or you're simply in over your head, All of these things can lead to health issues. And again, not only is it affecting you, it's also affecting the people closest to you. And I've personally seen cases where people have been so affected that they actually changed their entire demeanor, their outlook on life, their physical appearance, and then they actually needed to go on medication. If you're in a situation where you feel like you actually need to see a doctor because of your job, that is a major red flag. No position should put you in that much stress. Unless, of course, you're a brain surgeon. In that case, you should probably have some pressure. Are you wondering if you're overstressed or overloaded at work? Here's some of the symptoms. Could be a loss of appetite. Could be a sudden weight gain. Could be a loss of sleep or sleepless nights. It could be a loss of interest in hobbies that you used to enjoy. It could be a sense of anxiety or anxiousness. Maybe you're sleeping in the middle of the night and you wake up thinking, oh, there's that report that I didn't send in, or, oh, I've got this meeting coming up that I'm worried about, or I have to talk to my boss about something that's very uncomfortable to me, or I know I'm going to have a run-in with a certain coworker. I've even seen physical manifestations where people losing hair and developing hives. All of those things leading to anxiety. Or it could simply be just a complete lack of motivation to do your job. If you're dreading showing up every Monday morning because you're worried about what's going to happen at work, that's a sign. Now, this, of course, isn't an all-inclusive list. There's lots of ways that it can manifest itself. The point is, if you're developing physical or mental ailments as a result of your job or your career choice, you need to get out, and you need to get out quick. Your health is too important. Staying in a role that's just not healthy for you is going to affect your time, your money, your career trajectory, and the relationships around you. And if it's the career and not necessarily the company that's causing you the stress, that's an indicator that maybe you need to try something different. Let's talk about the second deal breaker.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say he's wrong, but you kind of hope he was going to tell you something that wasn't so sort of surface level. I mean, obviously, if you're going through this kind of trauma, then yeah, get out of the job. I thought he was, well, I don't know. Maybe the other points are he's going to get, there's going to be some more depth with it. This is sort of pop psychology, what he's offering. And like I said, it's not false. What he's saying is not false. It's just, I think I've heard this about 1,000 times,
Huh. Heard it about it. Well, I'm sure you've heard it like a million times. In other words, this is something that it's so ubiquitous you don't have to hear it. I mean, this is a truism. This is a very definition of truism. This is telling you that if you're that being sick is bad. I mean,
Right.
it literally said, if it's bad, it's bad. Okay, now, but let me give it more seriousness and harp on one of the things that you said, which is he is correct. But the thing about it is, I wouldn't characterize it as surface, one way of looking at it, but it's objectively true, and he did not put any context to it. So it's like, it could be
Yeah.
true that you're feeling bad and you don't want to go to work, blah, blah, but it might just be you. Might have nothing to do with your job, right? It's like,
Mhm.
'cause the first thing, given my general disposition, right, is obviously the first thing I'm going to ask is if these things are going on, is not whether it's my job. I'm like, hey, am I being a BAN? You know, how's my sleep? Am I hydration? Am I this? Am I that? How are all the things that I should be taking care of, in order to function as a human being? Uh, how am I taking care of that before I just look at it and say, oh, no, it must be the job, right? So, point being, obviously, if you are unhealthy, you know, with relationship to your work, it's bad. But he never quite put any context to how the work is causing this. Because you could just be not want to go to work because you're lazy, not want to go to work because your wife is cheating on you. Or, you don't want to
Right.
go to work because they put you on some weird drugs. I mean, there are many, many reasons why you will be dissatisfied with your job, but he made a whole number one, he says, and it's just like, oh, you are kind of unhealthy related to job. It's like 1,000 reasons why you could be unhealthy, which have nothing to do with your job. That's like the issue with this crazy point he made. But it's also kind of funny how he then goes on to list, here's how you know you're unhealthy. It's like,
Yeah.
that was funny too.
Yeah. So yeah, context is big. Yeah, context is big. So when I said surface level, yeah, I suppose maybe that was the wrong way to say this, but I meant surface with respect to
It is
like I
lacking
wanted
content.
more. Well, yeah, I wanted like logistics or like specifics, or I wanted him to say if your boss comes in and um, tells you that you need to work 5 more hours today, and he does that 5 weeks in a row. I mean that's a silly thing, but something.
Yeah. That would be good because that'll start showing, yeah, like why is this really why is it happening? And
Yeah, I mean because
it's
then
okay. So it's
that
your job,
rules
but
out
yeah,
but that rules out some of those things that you were saying before. Maybe you don't like your job because you're lazy. Maybe you don't like your job because your wife's cheating on you or whatever. You having a hard time, whatever. See, so that
yeah, and you're tired and you're just going through a particular kind of ice cream binge, like I am doing this week. I do keto generally speaking, but sometimes I'm just like I'm going for top notch desserts for like 2 days. And then you feel tired afterward. There's just like, well, are you gonna blame your work on that? It's like, no, it's like I'm being a heathen right now or whatever.
all right, let's see what reason number 2 is.
If you have a really terrible boss, anybody that's worked a given number of years in a professional career is going to have a boss that they absolutely hate at some point. It's just inevitable. And in fact, that's the most common reason why I see people leaving jobs. The dissatisfaction of working for a bad boss is the number one motivator to get people to look for other opportunities. Could be that you were a top performer in a past situation, yet you move to a new company and a new boss, and suddenly you're made to feel like a failure. Like nothing you do is good enough for them. You start to question your self-worth, and it can really affect your career trajectory. And I've personally seen bosses that have cut earned bonuses of their employees just because they felt like it. They didn't feel that they earned it. The same goes for performance feedback. I've seen bosses throw employees under the bus in very public settings before. And unfortunately, there are some people that rise to leadership positions that have no business being there. They lack the emotional intelligence and they demonstrate poor leadership traits in the office. A good leader would never reprimand you in front of your peers or other people in the organization. A good leader also provides motivational feedback that helps you improve your performance and not crush your will to live. Whereas a poor leader scolds you in front of your colleagues. They give you feedback in such a way that makes you just want to quit on the spot. They'll also dismiss your ideas or demotivate you through criticism. If you find yourself in any of these types of circumstances, you need to think about leaving. The next reason is a toxic.
That was actually a pretty good one. What did you think about it?
Yeah, that's good. He went in as you mentioned that perhaps the rest of them will kind of give the context and what you were looking for, right? So and then he went in with the boss thing, which is something that you almost alluded to or predicted. Now, if he's structuring these numbers the way I see him structuring it, then the latter half of what of what he says, I find it a little um, uh, patronizing. In other words, for example, where he's telling you how the first time he's telling you how you know that you are unhealthy, like it's sleep and this and that, and then for number 2, he's also telling you how you know a bad boss, and it's almost like, dude, like, come on, man, like, is this supposed to be for adults? Is this supposed to be for retarded kids? Like, and if he continues where like he tells you the problem, then he's just like, oh, here's how you recognize it. I'm just like, whoa. I mean, I was joking earlier when I said the extroverts and the feelers, but he's just making a caricature of it. Like this literally just people who don't know what to feel or how to feel. Just they're looking for some sign in the wind, some confirmation. But anyways, to the point that he made about the boss, 100%, as they say, people don't leave jobs, they don't quit jobs, they quit bosses, unless of course they have good reasons to move up or go somewhere else. But I don't really think I've had a bad um, boss ever. Because I probably wouldn't be paying attention too much. I'll remember. I'm the kind of person that remember like a great boss, right? And he'll stand out. But I'm not. I typically don't like get in the mix. So I'm not gonna be like, oh, here's the bad bosses and stuff like that. In terms of like people whom find microaggressions, for example, right? Microaggressions and offenses and all kinds of things, and the boss give me a side eye or whatever, some kind of conspiracy theory about their boss. That is also
Mhm.
a thing whereby people have all kinds of reasons to complain about something where I don't see it. So I'm saying that a lot of people create their own problems, right? A lot of people create their own problems. The people who go to everybody's cubicle and say hi every morning are also the same people who complain about 10% of the people that they're saying hi to every morning to. I never say hi to anybody in the morning, and I don't have any problems. But anyways, so you know that whole thing, right? There's a whole kind of
Yeah.
again extrovert thing where people just go in and get themselves in crap and then complain about the crap, and you're just like, dude, didn't you know what that was? That's what that is. Anyways, but yes, 100%, I agree with the what he said about the boss, and you got to know somebody that. So how did I avoid having bad bosses besides the fact that I just didn't pay attention to, perhaps some negative traits? Is that I a do a good job, okay?
Yep.
And if I remember from when I used to work at warehouses and stuff like that, the jobs were simple enough and basic enough. Like, and even when I did a bad job at the, I think I was like, my first job in the United States was loading airplanes at UPS, right? For transit, loading up the packages, right? And I sucked at that one because you had to take the stuff off the pallets. First of all, you had to scan it and read, kind of look at the address, kind of look at it. That didn't help the speed too much in terms of I have a disadvantage there in terms of the eyesight thing. But then you have to bend, and you'll get this one, Dr. Thunder, because the aircraft little container thing, it's like low, like a short door, right? Perfect for guys who are like 5'2" or something. They can just walk in and out. But I had to carry this up, and then I had to bend in, get in that thing, load it, and then bend out, just over and over and over, So my point being, I sucked at that job. It wasn't the boss or anything. The boss was kind of like a dick too, but I sucked. That's why I got laid off, right? So, but when I went to a different kind of a warehouse gig, and this was, during the community college times, shout out to Coach Gang, junior college. But when I found the
The JUCO.
the right type of situation, yeah, I didn't have to bend my back. The bosses are happy, right? So you do your job and you get out of the way for the most part. You're gonna be fine. That's number one. Avoid that whole thing where you're getting in the mix. You want to be in the middle of the potluck, and in the middle, dude. People are crazy everywhere. The more in the middle of people you get, and I understand that it's a need, and it's a thing that you utilize in order to form bonds and whatnot. But you got to be careful with it. But number two is understand that you need to get in the skill side of things, the mercenary side of things, the side of things where it can be clearly shown where your value is, the value that you bring in. So it's not a question of the boss, or whatever. Generally speaking, also, and I'll say this last thing, in these types of areas where there's a clear delineation of your value, okay, such as, let's say, doing lab experiments versus the other end where it's like, just doing politics and schmoozing, right? In that area, okay, tends to also be the types of people and the types of bosses that are only really gonna really care about the metrics, or not really, or gonna know how to recognize talent and stay out of your way, and those kinds of things, right? So that's my freaking overdrawn rant.
All right. Let's see here. Let's get this started here. Yeah, the boss thing is interesting. It reminds me of Michael Scott from The Office, because the three people that were the manager, the head manager, uh, they were all like, they all had serious deficiencies, you know. Um, Michael was a great salesman that never should have been a manager. Um, and he cared so much about how people felt, like he wanted people to like him. And so he would do anything so that people would like him, right? But then he would be cracking jokes on his underlings. He was adding himself to the list of people that could receive awards for performance in the office.
How is that supposed to be encouraging to his people, though? But I thought he wanted them to like him.
I know. It's just the dude was so insecure about so many things that it just bled out over everything, right? But he was a nice guy, you know. So there's Michael, there's Andy Bernard, who also had no business being in a managing position. In matter of fact, he quit his job to basically become a star, and he's 40 something, decided that he's going to quit his job to go make it big in Hollywood, basically. And the way that he burned the bridge so that he couldn't come back to a position at Dunder Mifflin was he literally took a dump on the CEO's car who was there visiting. Okay, there you go. And then there is Dwight Schrute, who Dwight is actually the one that had the best management skills because he's a no nonsense kind of guy, but he also is an idiot in a lot of ways. Character flaws and brown nose into certain folks and just all kinds of weird stuff. So, but the reason that show is has been so successful and why so many people love that show and watch it over and over is because it's because of the boss. It's because of Michael Scott in general, in particular. It's because those other bosses too, because all of us can sort of imagine, or we can sort of remember certain traits. We recognize certain traits that they had in bosses that we've had, right? And they're huge caricatures. They're made, hyperbolic and way bigger than they actually are. Those certain personality traits, but we all recognize those. So that's why that's so interesting. And I've had a couple really good bosses. I've had bosses that were terrible. I've had bosses.
What did the good bosses do? Can you describe a characteristic of a good boss?
Well, a good boss for me just kind of stays out of my way. When I was young, maybe a good boss was someone that I also had frequent interactions with, and they'd talk to me about certain things or certain dynamics, certain work environment dynamics, and try to tell me about things to help me to navigate. So this would have been like when I was early 20s. Mm-hmm. At this time now, it's just, I just need you to just basically trust that I know what I'm doing and stay out of my way and support the stuff that I'm doing. Because if you're not going to do that, then I don't know why I'm here. You know what I'm saying? Because you get to a certain point and it's like, I'm the expert in this particular thing. You hired me to do this particular job. Here's my recommendation. So if you're not going to take my recommendation, okay, now obviously sometimes you can't do everything all the time. So, but if you're going to never take my recommendation, then okay, now I don't know what's going on, right? So as long as they are staying sort of out of my way, then it works out. I don't need somebody patting me on the back. I don't need, the way that if you want to encourage me, put some more zeros on my check. I don't need you to talk to me. I don't need to, I honestly, a lot of the personal stuff, I think that people want, I don't necessarily crave that. I'm not shunning that. I recognize that it's a good idea to spend time with your boss, get to know them, to get an idea of what's going on. I get that. But that's not going to be the way to. One of the bosses was Will Ferrell. He was a cure. What was his name? Uh, I can't think of his name now. Somebody probably remembers his name and can put it in the chat. But and something was really wrong with him. He was put in the position, but he didn't last very long because he had some kind of mental breakdown. But he was doing all kinds of stuff like uh, secret clubs and stuff. Like he had this sort of inner circle thing where he never talked about it, but he just at random points in time he would just say, "Okay, I want such and such, such and such, such and such, and such and such to come in my office." And he wasn't calling it a meeting, and they were just in there basically talking about stuff. He had like a basketball hoop thing on his door. They were, shooting shots in his office. And the thing is that the way that the office is designed, everybody sees who went in there and then also who did not go in there. And he's like trying to play mind games, right? Because Jim Halpert, who originally was in the inside, apparently he said something that the new boss didn't like. So then the next day, he thought he was supposed to go in there, though he didn't hear his name. But he goes in there, and they're just looking at, and the boss is just looking at him like, "Do you need something? Do you need anything?" And until he leaves, right? So it's just so any of that kind of stuff, I'm just not. I just don't need that. I don't want that. I don't actually care about that. I would be kind of like, I hope I'm not in the inside. I hope they just leave me alone and I can just stay out here. That's what it would be like because I'd actually be doing some work, you know. But
Yeah,
yeah.
and for the people who need that, right? Um, I will take one step back to something that you mentioned about your boss leaving you alone because they hired you to do something, right? And it's part of what we talked about when we said, being that skilled area, quote unquote, the mercenary area where you. But then this calls into the question: aren't you only talking about like exceptional people? I'm not really. I'm talking about a skill because you don't have to necessarily be exceptional to have mastered certain prompts in Chat GPT or some of the AI in order to do some function for some company in the marketing department, which they outsource, for example, right? And you're just like a side contractor, and that's what you do. It's like an expertise. They come to you for that particular thing. You get it done. You're good at it, but it's not because you're like genius level IQ or some kind of thing. But the principle of moving towards things where you can clearly kind of show expertise. It was Steve Jobs that said, like basically, I mean, there are people who you hire to tell what to do, and there are people who you hire so they can tell you what to do, right? You want to be in the latter category. You want to be in the category of people that Steve Jobs hires because they want to listen. Steve Jobs wants to listen to you. Like, hey, what are you? Tell me what to do. You lead the way. You blah blah blah. And basically, that's an expertise and skill thing that he's describing, right? The person has the expertise. Typically, this just means move towards the niche areas, even in your domain, right? Because it's a numbers game at the end of the day, right? Uh, there's a reason that I do seismic engineering in for industrial clients, right? Industrial and that kind of thing. You mean like data centers, water treatment facilities, and these types of things, pharmaceutical facilities, and seismic. It's a very specialized kind of area where there's not a lot of people, and a lot of people know the nuances of it. And typically, that's where the money is, in whatever field. So that's basically what I had to add to that.
All right, everybody, like the video, like, share, comment, subscribe, become a channel member where you'll get access to all archived videos. Support black male media, support independent media. Super chats enabled. Super thanks for the replay gang. Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, Dr. Thunder Music, all one word. Spell out the word doctor. If you'd like to buy me a sandwich, then shoot me a Cash App. Hashtag Sandwich Gang. And if you didn't know it, sandwich is spelled with 2 M's. Sandwich. Let's keep going.
Toxic work culture. If your company has a win at all costs mentality, that's a sign of a bad or a toxic work culture. Because that mentality usually starts at the top and it doesn't bode well for turnover. Now, it's one thing to be a competitive work environment and be very aggressive in the marketplace, but it's another thing to win at all costs, even at the expense of your employees or doing the right thing on the market. Most companies publish core values, and you can usually see the core value statements written out and usually prominently displayed somewhere in the office or in your company literature, maybe even on the website. But if you go into a workplace setting and the core values are not being reflected by the leadership team, that's a sign that something's not right. Look around your department. Look at the other departments. Are there whispers at the water coolers? How are people treating each other? How are colleagues treating each other? And when you're in meetings, are people treated with respect? Are your goals realistic and obtainable? Is there recognition for your accomplishments? Now, even your colleagues and coworkers can be toxic or contribute to that toxic work environment. If you're working with somebody that just seems set on making your life miserable, spreading rumors, or even going to your boss behind your back and talking about you, that person is a toxic influence. And for whatever reason, these people tend to fall into influential roles, whether they've been there a long time and they've got the trust of the boss. But an astute manager would recognize these issues and manage the situation. But if your manager seems to be oblivious or even worse, aligned with them, then it's time to look elsewhere because you're never going to win in that situation. It's better to find a position where you're not surrounded by such toxicity. The next reason is if the company is doing something illegal.
All right. Thank you very much for the $10 super chat. That's a little loud. Sorry about that, guys.
He just
Let's try that
blew out some
again.
eardrums.
Okay, that's more like the volume should be. But thank you very much. And the super chat reads, but from Cornbread, a good supervisor will let you fail fairly. It is often the experience of black men where they are gaslit to believe they failed at work while information regarding work has been withheld from them. Yeah, you got to tell people how things are going. You have to give them the information. You know, this this last point, reason number 3. So it reminds me of another Office episode where Michael is actually spreading rumors. And now Michael is remember, he is the manager, but he is spreading rumors all day because earlier that day he tells people something that is actually true, but he doesn't want them to believe that it's true. So he goes around and spreads rumors about everyone, making up all kinds of stuff. Right? And then he's walking around to people telling them, oh, it's just a weird day for false facts and, fake news. And, he's doing all this kind of stuff. But he's hiding who it was that actually was originating all of these rumors. It was him. He was making up all the stuff. Right? And, and obviously that's a gross caricature. It's intended to be, large and stuff. But it, unfortunately, it's a pretty regular sort of thing. Bosses, they get in sort of cliquey, relationships with certain employees, especially if they were promoted from a particular department and then they still have sort of a bias towards a particular department. And so when, they're in there bad mouthing folks from other departments, the boss is joining in. They're joining in on that stuff, you know, or when, or a boss will, because they came from a particular department, they'll tend to support that department more. There's all kinds of stuff like this that happens regularly. And this point he's talking about as far as coworkers. Oh my goodness. you know, some of these institutions, there are certain employees that are hard to get rid of. And multiple people, almost everybody could have issues with them, but they won't get rid of them. They're just going to keep them forever and ever. Amen. And you can't do anything about it. The only thing that you can do is just try not to associate with them. But unfortunately, if they're a person that is in a position where you have to frequently interface with them, that can be just like freaking, that's just terrible. And then you could just dreading having to deal with them or dreading having to have meetings with them, and you have a sense that certain folks are probably double crossing you, or they're in cahoots with somebody else, or they really want to get their crony in, all of that kind of stuff. It's just a lot of hogwash that goes on. If you start sniffing that stuff out, if you can't get yourself away from that stuff, that seems to me to be, I wouldn't be able to deal with that.
Yeah, his point here about win at all costs, I believe was his phrase, right? Winning at all costs being one of the bad things, or one of the things to watch out for in a company. Um, he didn't quite clarify what these all costs are, right? Because I think in this next point here, because we already overheard that he's about to say, if they're doing something illegal, but this is point number 4, right? Illegal. Okay, but win at all costs, still look like a gray area to me. Because if you're gonna work at, let's say, Tesla or SpaceX, then it's gonna be like getting into special forces, as opposed to if you just want to be like a regular army engineer at LinkedIn, let's say. Still great companies, and you're gonna be blah blah blah. But SpaceX and Tesla and Elon Musk, yeah, you know what you're getting into. It's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be ridiculous. Standards are gonna be too high. Expectations are gonna be too crazy. Some people love that kind of stuff. Dr. Thunder is salivating right now. He's like, yeah, I want a piece of that. So if that's, you got to know that that's what you're getting into. But if it then goes into the kinds of examples you were given regarding the kind of how people treat each other, and the cliques and the this and the that, yes, obviously that's a bad thing. But offhand, just know if you're going to get into special forces, that's going to be special forces type stuff. Don't blame anyone. Yes, quit if you're not down for it, for sure. But it's not like, oh, this, they just, let's not get into that making moral judgments about that winning attitude, right? Because and now I'm just kind of exposing my bias here. It's obviously something that I that I have some kind of a personal issue with, as somebody who tends to, and this is not even a conscious thing. It's mainly that someone who tends to drive towards their goals, right? And again, I say it's not conscious because it's not like, because I think the perception of other people is just that, like, I'm out here just kind of bulldozing everything out of the way, and it's like, no, it's just very natural that I've decided I'm going to do something, so I'm gonna do it, like, and I'm gonna keep doing. I'm gonna make sure I get results. It's gonna be done to completion, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. There is that tendency to people to start looking at you as a win at all costs type person. And especially if you tend not to, or if you discount the emotions of other people, or to put it a different way, if you don't take the responsibility for other people's emotions, right? You're like, I'm not, I get, I'm not going to take responsibility for that, right? I'm going to keep on charting my course here, right? People will then look like, this is weird. But that's not necessarily what's going on. I don't think you can make the internal judgments about about their intent. You know, again, it's still making excuses for myself, because ultimately it doesn't matter what they think, but for their clarity, they should know to the degree to which they care about this very driven type of person. It is because it's not like they don't recognize that your emotions are real, but it's not going to stop this goal. It is ineffective in the world of actually getting things done, and they're quite focused on the world of getting things done. And whether they take your emotions into account or not really just proves to be a zero and net zero in this world. Emotions swing one way, they swing the other way. If I maybe I assuage your feelings today, but tomorrow you might go crazy again because of whatever, right? So it's just like, it's on balance, it's best to just leave people's emotions alone and be like, hey, I hear what you said, whatever, but I'm gonna keep on doing what I need to do to get to my goals. I'm gonna get off my whatever soapbox.
Yeah,
Is that the
no, I
capitalist
mean,
individualist soapbox? Whichever it is, go ahead.
yeah, I was thinking about this. So, I mean, I'll tell you, uh, one of the reasons why a lot of people won't work at. Hey, I'm just gonna go ahead and just throw it fully under the bus. One of the reasons why a lot of folks won't work at black churches. I'm just going, I'm just going to go ahead and go there. Um, is because there's a lot of personality issues, and there's a lot of dysfunction in the way that things are managed, and which is a pretty common thing. Like, I can't talk about 100% of churches. I can't talk about 100% of black churches, but I can talk about the ones that I've been involved with. I've been involved with one in particular, all these years, where there still was some stuff that shouldn't have been going on, but where that stuff wasn't coming from the leader. That wasn't coming from the pastor. Every other situation I've been in, every single one, including the one that I just left, and actually it's been some months ago now, and which has convinced me that probably I won't be doing it anymore. I probably won't be, at least not in a lead role. I mean, I could play in the band, whatever, but as far as a lead role, I'm not interested in it. Is because there's a lot of just really bad leadership traits, poor leadership, um, backward stuff, underhanded, double crossing, don't do what you say, um, you know, take advantage of folks, take advantage of people because it's a church, so you'll let them get away with a little bit more. You know, they won't take advantage of people as far as paying them lower because you know uh, as I grow, you grow, right? If I can't tell you how many times I've heard that, and where that has never panned out. That has never panned out, right? You start and then the church grows and explodes, and they still paying you peanuts.
Mhm.
You know, so there's a reason why a lot of really talented folks just decide that they're not going to deal with that garbage anymore. And it starts to make you feel all of the stuff that this guy's talking about, feeling bad about yourself, you know, something that you enjoy doing turning into something that you resent doing, like you don't want to do it. Like I don't want to have to deal with this person. Ugh, I got to go and meet with this cat. I wonder what kind of sideways out the side of their neck stuff they're going to be dealing with this time. You know, that's not what that isn't what you want. Now, if there's enough money in it, I'll deal with that, you know? So if we're talking about major jack, then I'll deal with, I'll deal with more of that, right? And I have thick skin, I can handle it. But if you ain't even really paying that well, plus I got to take this abuse, pff, man, I'm out of there so quick. And and the thing is I had to learn that because I've taken a lot of abuse, and never been treated right, except for one situation. All of the rest of them, I have been treated poorly. And see, the thing is, it would be one thing if I was in there contributing to the foolishness. Then I would be getting what I deserved. But I don't mess with any of that stuff. And matter of fact, I try to keep a distance so that I don't have to deal with that stuff, you know? And I think what happens with a certain personality type, I'm introverted, whatever, is that, and I have that sort of sigma male thing or whatever. I, you can't really control me. You can't the higher I can work a hierarchy. I like hierarchies, but I'm not really part of the hierarchy. Like I'm kind of doing my own thing. You can't really control me with like the same manipulative stuff, and but you can't really get me to go harder in the paint because you said something that caused me to question, you know. Yeah, it doesn't, none of that stuff works. I'm just like, I'm in there, I in here, I do a high quality job, I'm on time, I do what I'm supposed to do, I treat people with respect, no scandals, X, Y, and Z, then I go home. And you're not going to be able to get me to do no extra stuff. I'm sorry. I'm not doing no extra stuff. Not with, I mean, art is kind of, it's always, there's a tendency for it to be a little bit more time than you thought it was going to be and a few more things involved. That's fine. But I ain't doing no, you know, you ain't going to get me to do, I don't need you. I can do something else. So that's the way that I kind of have learned that I have to operate. And I didn't start that way. I started very much, hey, I'm willing to do extra stuff. I'm willing to, hey, I'm here for the team, blah, blah, blah. I did all of that. And, you know, they walked all over me. So I don't do that no more. Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. But yeah, last spot, I was like, nope, peace out. It's like, nope, I'm not doing it. Peace out.
Yeah, it's interesting. The church conversation. Well, it's, there is a particular narrative as to how these different organizations get infiltrated by a particular type of mind virus.
Goodness.
But the main thing is that it's about this becomes a loosening of certain standards. generally speaking, or reluctance to uphold standards, or kind of like it is about that. Well, I mean, it's like it's tautology, right? I'm doing the truism thing right now, but yeah, it's a crazy thing. Plus, we also mentioned too that churches and these types of establishments have to have those standards very closely watched because they're particularly prone to into it's rich area for these particular viruses, right? It's, you know what I mean? It's if you're gonna go somewhere and f you stuff up, or be manipulative or do all kinds of that is, that is the place you're gonna want to do it, right? So
So I think see the thing, and this is what gets me about when churches do this stuff. Okay, this is what gets me about it. Okay, because we know this is just human behavior, and we know that this stuff happens everywhere. Okay, sure. All right. Matter of fact, it happens so often that the show that I've been referring to several times, The Office, was a huge hit because of all of this dysfunctional office stuff, most of it emanating from the boss. Okay. So we know that this stuff happens everywhere. All right. So church ain't the only place that it happens. But the problem is when the church is participating in that foolishness, that's directly against, it's hypocritical. It's directly against what it is that they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be doing this better. And if they know better, or dare I say, in many cases, worse, and it sucks too because you want to be able to be vulnerable at some point, right? And where can you be vulnerable? Hey, finally I find somebody, a church that I can be vulnerable at. I can be myself, X, Y, and Z. I can do this job. They're gonna take care of me. They're gonna look out for me. Finally, this guy got this relationship with this cat, and guess what happens? They do the same garbage. And that's why it's even worse. And this is why I tell folks, you can play music in church. That's cool. But you probably have to watch them closer than you watch anybody else. Because there will be there's a temptation that I think it's like almost impossible for them to avoid, avoid exploiting, the person in a particular way. There's a temptation to take advantage of them because it's a church, because they won't see it coming. Yeah. So anyhow, let's now that I crapped on everyone's parade, um let's play this next point. Reason number 4.
If the company that you're working for is breaking the law, or even worse, asking you to break the law, you need to get out immediately. The moral compass of the organization is completely directionless. And second, you could be held personally liable. So whether it's financial shadiness, maybe some questionable environmental policies, or even breaking of some human resources laws, you need to be very careful. So if you do see something, the first thing that you should do is go to your HR department, report it to them, or if you have a legal department, go there. If they still don't react to it, or there's nothing done about it, and you still see the same behavior going on, then you just need to cut bait. No job is worth ruining your professional reputation over. The final deal breaker on the
So, what do you think of that breaking the law? The breaking the law one.
yeah, that I mean, that one is a straightforward one, right? I mean,
Yeah.
uh because of all these things, right? I mean, I guess one has to assume that you're someone who doesn't want to break the law. Like I think
Right. Hey, that's what I
let's
got in the
I mean,
game
'cause
for.
because he just seems to assume. Um, but the general point I'm making is, you need to know what over. We were kind of vague about the law breaking. Started out with maybe certain hard fact type things, all the way to like where you talk about HR laws. It starts to get vague, and then it gets into this land of ethics, which then I'm just like, okay, who knows? It might not be, no big deal. I'm not gonna be a hall monitor over every letter of the law, right? I mean, but um, not or I mean, I'm just kind of trying to be contrarian here, right? Not contrarian, or trying to find, because it's obvious, right? I mean, it's the law, it's legal, it's a obvious reason to be alarmed about something and to consider it. It's a good reason to say, hey, to question whether you should be there or not, and so on and so forth. But so I was just trying to find that particular gray area where he started talking about HR laws, kind of bleeds into ethics and whatnot. That's the only area where it's like, oh, yeah, don't be too much of a stickler to a letter to the law, but be sure about the aspect that affects you personally or not, right? Where it's like, okay, is this going to affect me personally? Then no, I'm not going to worry about which particular kind of nepotism laws they're breaking and they're, whatever.
Yeah. And it's interesting too because there's certain organizations, to my point before,
Oh.
there's there's certain organizations that you don't see it coming. You don't expect for them to be the ones that get involved with that. And man, some of these churches, man, they're doing as much dirt. I mean, they doing as much dirt with the money and shady stuff with the money. Cats, getting their hand in the cookie jar and splitting town and stuff, or leaving one job in one part of the country under some questionable and shady, you know, circumstances, and not being, you know, fully transparent about what the deal was, getting hired somewhere else. And the thing is that a lot of these churches, they don't necessarily follow up and do their due diligence. And if they see a certain kind of person with certain skills, it's like, oh no, that's going to be him. That's going to be it. And then of course, to the point earlier with the confirmation, right? See, this is the confirmation I was looking for. So now they don't have to do their due diligence because they got their confirmation. I'm sorry, man. I'm uh
Hey.
oh man, I probably sound worse than some of these I thought somebody turns me on. It's like, oh, Dr. Thunder went atheist. he's he's saying the worst stuff that I heard this other cat say. Oh my goodness. Oh man. No, I didn't go atheist. I'm just telling you the truth. We talking about, you know, when it's time to leave, when it's time to quit, it's time to get out of there. You find yourself in these kind of environments, and you really can't stick around. You really have to have enough sort of intestinal fortitude and to get out. And and sometimes the money's not worth it. And sometimes you might have to leave a certain situation where you don't know what's going to happen. You know, you don't know how you're gonna make everything square out, but you don't really have you have to get out of there. It's like doing damage to you, like daily damage. You can't stick around for that. You know, you're worth more than that. You do have inherent value, and other folks shouldn't just be able to willy nilly walk all over you and still be able to get the benefit of your skills. They should have to, at the bare minimum, treat you with respect, follow through, do what it is that they say they're going to do, not be plotting against you, not telling you one thing and telling other folks something else. You know, so and that wouldn't matter where that was happening. If you're experiencing that now, like I said, if there's more zeros on the check, if there was like a lot more zeros on the check, then I'd be okay with it. But if we talking about, nah, you're not paying enough money for this. So you're gonna do me like this, and it was over this money. This ain't no money.
I like I like this, and I like that that you're talking about the church too, also because when you bring this money aspect, because and you also mentioned the money aspect earlier when you said people will pay you less because quote unquote, and then they will give you this promise, right, of like as I grow, you grow, we grow, Negro.
Right.
But
Man, I'm telling you, every single one of them, every single one that I worked at, every single one has said that to me. Every single one.
that's
You know
the
how many that worked
that's
out
weird.
for? Zero. Zero.
Uh,
0%. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, and so on that money thing that when you brought it up the second time, talking about the amount, because that's the kind of thing that people will see. Money is very much a quantity thing. In other words, if you're going to talk about money, then you're talking about how much money, and it matters. As Stalin said, whatever, quantity is a quality all of its own, right? Um, so, but some people might want to say, that there's certain areas, and that's why these areas are open to it being exploited. Typically, the arts and again, religion, is because these are areas where people are glad to do it for free, right? And it's somewhat kind of expected that you kind of do. People are creative, for example, right? And people will write songs and stuff, so it kind of cheapens the thing, unfortunately. But um, uh, but it is important to point out that the quantity does matter. That hey, if I'm going to be put through this BS, then the remuneration needs to be correct. Because some people
Yeah.
might be like, "Oh, you should never." Then that's going against your moral whatever. It's like you're not gonna if you live in you're not a hall monitor of the world. Okay, that's not what your morality. It's not where the salvation of your soul lies. To be, being the policeman. But anyways, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's get this last point in.
On the list is being asked to do something that's just not safe. Now, in a world where we're governed by OSHA rules, you would think most companies would follow safety protocol, but unfortunately there are companies out there who skirt the lines of what's allowable, all usually in the name of getting a job done quickly and making the most money. But safety is non-negotiable. By being asked to do something unsafe or less than safe or skirting the OSHA guidelines, your company is showing that they have no commitment to you. So trust your intuition. If you're being asked to do something that just doesn't feel right, voice your concerns to your boss. They should be able to step in and do something about it. If your boss isn't responding to it, go to your HR leader and do the same thing. Any decent leader would stop the work immediately and address the concerns before moving forward. But if the company values the bottom line over your life or your well-being, that's all you need to know. It is absolutely worth cutting bait. There is no job out there that is worth risking your life or your limb. So there you have it. If you find yourself in any one of these circumstances, you really need to start thinking about whether or not this is...
here. So he finished that point. I'll let him do his summation after we talk about this point. So the sort of safety
Okay.
consideration. What did you think
Yeah.
of that?
So yeah, in my world, it's a big deal, right? I
Yeah.
remember first years out of college was I worked in the State Department of Transportation in the bridge engineering side of things. And while I was there, there was a particular accident, that where somebody got killed, one of the Caltrans employees, um, and also in general, just being in a job site with all the machinery, the heights, the falls, the this, the that, the sharps, the blah blah blah. It's a huge deal, and you it is an area where it is easy, especially if you're if it's your workshop or something like that, where your personal workshop, your personal little garage with your tools, Dr. Thunder. You might
Mhm.
maybe not wear the gloves or not have a particular, you know, strict regimen regarding safety gear, right? PPE as they call it, right? Personal protective, whatever. And sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, do I really have to have this vest and thing in order to go inspect this stuff? Because I travel to Seattle and I forget to take certain gear with me because I'm at, because I forget that I might randomly end up at as an active construction site where I have to blah blah blah. Anyways, but it's very important, right? It's something that I always respected, even you know I like to question things, right? Wow, sandwich! I've never seen a sandwich before. That was a whole novel experience that just happened right before your eyes there. But yeah. So safety is key. Safety is 100% key. I've always kind of respected it, especially given the line of work that I'm in. So if someone is, yeah, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's not, I mean, shout out to uh Obsidian, right? He did have an accident at a
Right.
construction site years ago, and yeah, just little things. That was a slip and fall, like due to, yeah, all these, everything matters. um
Most certainly does. You know, yeah, the safety thing that's big. Um, and safety and sort of wear and tear. So uh, so I do a lot of gigs in um, and I'm a musician, and so I'm hauling stuff everywhere, and a lot of gear is getting transported here and there, and I'm also like a self starter, so I don't really want to ask somebody else to help me do this or help me do that. But you kind of have to make them provide, whatever assistance is necessary, so you're not the one schlepping a bunch of stuff. And as I get older, schlepping stuff potentially could be actually a lot more dangerous for me, you know. Um so yeah. So and that might not be a matter of necessarily the institution, the company telling you to do dangerous stuff, but rather it could just be a matter of a lack of support, which over time is doing damage to you. So you have to make them aware and make them do right. And if they're not willing to, do what's right, you know, that could be an issue. Now, I don't know if that alone in the circumstance that I just painted is necessarily, grounds for me saying, "Hey, I got to get out of here now," without knowing if I have another job lined up. But that plus maybe some other stuff, some other toxic stuff or whatever, that could be. Yeah, y'all obviously don't care about me. You don't care about my well being. I told you that I have a tricky back, and y'all are not getting me any help to haul this equipment. Y'all are not doing whatever, you know.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Shout out to Nixon with the OSHA. I think that was Nixon. uh, well, OSHA isn't as they're not as bad as the rap that they get. But anyways, shout out to them, and shout out to this gentleman here with his someone. Okay, okay, interesting. I was thinking back on one of the comments in your channel, but let me not go down that tangent about this particular channel. In terms of the quality of his production or the style of his production, I know you haven't seen much of his videos. What do you think about it overall? So 200,000
well, he's got.
subs started in 2020. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think a channel like his shows that you don't. I mean, I don't see a lapel mic. I don't see. Um, he may have a microphone on like a telescoping sort of microphone on the camera that he's using. He's doing jump cuts, which are easy to do.
Hmm.
Um, you know, his lighting is good. You don't see any shadows on him, so his lighting's pretty good. Um, you know, the background is not the greatest background I
It's,
ever
it-
saw.
yeah, but it almost kind of works this institutional kind of grayed out, like it's
Yeah,
a hazy, dreamlike, freaking old Chinese movie. I don't know.
uh,
It's,
uh,
it's kind of it's interesting. But yeah, the room is very important. What I mean by that, in terms of the sound now, in terms of
right.
microphones, you don't have to go all out with the with the Joe Rogan microphone. If for certain types of things, but the sonically, get a right room with a decent mic, or you can tighten up the room with some fabric or whatever. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, I mean, but it's it shows that you don't have to have you know a bunch of gear to be able to make good content. I mean, I think it's a good video. What we looked at was a good video. I mean, we're nitpicking aspects of it, but I thought it was a good video, and it's seemed like a sort of an introduction to this topic kind of video where you got enough information to start thinking, yeah, I need to start thinking about this, and then you could dig a little deeper pretty easily. So I thought, it was good for that. I mean, the video is uh 10 minutes and 18 seconds. Not a long video, pretty punchy. Dude speaks well, you know, clear clear points. Yeah, it's good.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
All right. All right. Well, that is the end of that. Anything coming up for you?
For me, we got case closed on your channel again,
Yeah.
or yeah, you're gonna be. 'Cause I think we had to do it on my channel last time again. Didn't that happen?
Yeah, we did it a
So
couple times in a row cuz I was on the road.
got it. But
So,
yeah,
yeah.
for me, what I'm gonna, starting next week, right? I'm gonna do a few more commentaries um, on some daily news that is of interest from C-SPAN. I did a
Oh, okay.
couple of those a while ago, but I have a couple of those lined up to kind of highlight a few things that have been kind of happening, if you will. But Other than that, yeah, next week we're gonna be back on your channel again, also for getting ish done,
Yeah.
right? So, uh, but in between, check out my channel, click the like button,
Yeah.
check out a video, subscribe.
Yeah. Definitely head over to Ike's channel, subscribe, join, all that good stuff. Bang the bell, all of that. And if you're not subscribed over here, make sure you do that. Thanks to the super chatter, Cornbread with the $10 super chat. Thanks again for that. And yeah, this is it's been a good show. Tomorrow night should be doing a Two Dads React. Been on a bit of a hiatus for that show also, but supposed to get back to it. There's about 1 billion things going on in the world today. We've got plenty of conspiracy to cover. Lots of stuff going on. And tomorrow morning for Rolling Thunder, I'm going to be taking a look at this whole Lizzo business. I'm going to review a video that MTR did, sort of basically covering the details of this of these allegations, this supposed lawsuit against Lizzo. And so we'll be talking about that and sort of comparing that with the sort of usual Me Too-ing that men endure. Maybe take a look at, maybe the difference. Take a look at what it is that's being claimed, and kind of go from there. And then on Friday, there'll be an open panel. So let's make sure you come and check out the open panel next week. I've got a Dr. Thunder Quartet will be performing. Dr. Thunder Quartet will be performing the music of Thelonious Monk. And that's going to be a 6 to 10 p.m. concert. What is it? August 10th. So that's next week. That's coming. That'll be live streamed. So make sure you come and support that if you want to support black men.
Does the room have good audio on the stream? You gonna hear it properly?
Yeah. So I've been making some adjustments and struggling with some audio stuff. I've been hauling a lot of equipment with a variety of different results, and so I'm still trying to work out that issue, but we're making progress. So audio will be much better than it was in June when I did the John Coltrane show. That the audio for that show was really not good. Had a lot of issues and was rolling out something new, and it was probably too much at the same time, and X, Y, and Z. But this show will be the audio will be much better. So anyhow, that's kind of where we're at. All kinds of stuff, all kind of great stuff happening. We're keeping it moving, keeping it grooving. And thanks for coming through. And this has been another episode of Getting Ish Done with Ike and Dr. Thunder. Make sure you come back on Sunday for Case Closed at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then come back again next Wednesday for another Getting Ish Done with Ike and Dr. Thunder. And you know how we do it. Please support the show, like, share, comment, subscribe, become a channel member where you'll get access to all archived videos. Support Black Male Media, support independent media, super chats enabled, super thanks for the Replay Gang, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, Dr. Thunder Music, all one word. Spell out the word doctor. And if you'd like to buy me a sandwich, make sure you send me a Cash App, #SandwichGang. Sandwich is spelled with 2 M's if you didn't know it. And that's our time. Be good to yourself and others. Peace out.
Peace. Quit your job.
Ha.